dedicated to the 90th anniversary of Azerbaijani diplomacy. Bhagwan Cinema and Ari present This is a chronicle of a history full of mystery. I will tell you about the distant past of my country. We are living the digital speed of the 21st century and are traveling back 35 to 40,000 years, or possibly even further. To learn about our history, our past, and our origin, it will suffice to climb up the Gobelston cliffs and question the rocks. For millennia, our ancestors have made themselves known to us through rock engravings, carvings, and other drawing methods, depicting their economy, culture, and way of life. Initially skeptical about Gobelston, the famous traveller Thor Heyerdahl could not conceal his admiration when he saw the depiction of the ship with a solar symbol on its prow. According to him, Gobelston is an ancient hearth of culture which originates from its unknown past, making this even more ancient cultural site than Mesopotamia. It appears that primitive societies used this method to yield fire. Perhaps there was no need for that at Yanadag mountain. Azerbaijan, the land of fire. Scriptwriter, director, cameraman, Israfil Agazadeh. Artist, Adil Azai. Sound producer, Alexei Tsoy. Editing, Hanglar Agaev. Music production, Rauf Aliyev. Executive producer, Hanglar Jafarov. Producer, Israfil Agazadeh. Narrator, Kamran Yunis. Scientific studies have revealed that the human jawbone discovered in the Azikh cave, Karabakh, is the oldest human remains found in the Caucasus and the Near East. It belonged to a female in her late teens or early 20s who lived in what is now Azerbaijan, 350 to 400,000 years ago. Traces of history are preserved in the earth and in words. These findings represent us the high level of development, artistic taste and intellect of the people who lived and created in the territory of modern Azerbaijan. The ancient states of Mana, Media, Atropatene and Caucasian Albania succeeded one another in the territory of Azerbaijan. From the ethnic point of view, the ancient settlers of this territory belonged to the Turkic-speaking peoples. Chronologically, this era corresponds to the ancient period in the history of Greece, which lasted from the time of Homer to the Hellenistic period.
Prometey odu Yunanistan'a, məhz Azərbaycandan aparmışdı.
The state of Mana had a high economic and cultural level of development. Manna was first mentioned in 843 BC in the cuneiform document attributed to the Assyrian king Salmanasar III. I arrived in the lands of Udaki of Manna. Took Udaki's cattle, sheep and goats, and his countless riches, and emptied and burned the city. The state of Mana, mentioned in the Torah as Mini, was one of the strongest nations of the ancient East. The Manians were full of determination, not only to create a large state, but also to create works of art which reflected philosophical perceptions of the world. Believing in creativity and art, they were also engaged in cattle breeding, handicrafts and agriculture. The political and geographical location of the ancient Azerbaijani states turned their culture into a treasure for the whole region. Later, Assyrian cuneiform documents refer to this territory as Media or Mada. At that time, a Median named Deyok united local tribes and established a single state. The capital of that state was the city of Ekbatana. Media reached the highest level of its development from 625 to 585 BC under King Cyaxares. In the course of the wars they waged, the Medians conquered Manna, Assyria, Urartu, and Lydia. Media was the birthplace of a number of religious beliefs and philosophical doctrines. This fact is even reflected in the Bible. In 550 BC, the Persian king Cyrus conquered Media and made it part of the Achaemenid Empire. In spite of this, the Persians themselves fell under the influence of the high culture of the Medians. This culture originated from the philosophy of the Zoroastrian religion founded in Media. Positive thought, positive word, positive work, was the spiritual and behavioral triad mentioned in the Zoroastrian holy book, Avesta, and was forever engraved in the minds of the Azerbaijanis. As stated in the Avesta, fire is one of the essential attributes of Zoroastrianism, and fire keepers are referred to as mags or mugs. The Avesta's original text was compiled by Raga and Median priests from Atropatene. Such ancient names as Mugam and Mugan Plain preserve their historical meaning until now in Azerbaijan. The dearest holiday of our people, Novruz Bayramı, which summons light, purity, abundance, and honesty, is a pleasant legacy of those ancient times. The importance of fire in the spiritual life of Atropatene is also proven by the name of its first king, Atropates. The name Atropates means protected by fire. This gifted military leader was in command of the assault troops of Darius III's advanced army. Alexander the Great won a victory over Darius III, but signed an agreement with Atropates. Atropatene gained sovereignty. Alexander was completely won over by the military and political skill of the Atropates, the satrap of Media. They even became relatives. His state included the lands of the Manians, Medians, Caspians, Mughs, Caducees, Matians, and other ancient tribes. The lower reaches of the Kura River, where it flows into the Caspian Sea, witnessed the battle between the Caucasian Albanians and Roman troops led by Pompeius around 60 BC. At the time, these lands were within the borders of the great ancient eastern kingdom of Caucasian Albania, which existed for a millennium. Caucasian Albania was an early unified feudal state ruled first by Albanian kings and later by great princes of the Mihranid dynasty. Here, one should note the reign of Javanshir. Javanshir, who ruled in the 7th century AD, was a prominent military leader, wise politician, an adroit diplomat, and a great statesman. He prevented Caucasian Albania from becoming a colony of the Sassanid and Byzantine empires. He restored the country's control of the territory between the Aras River in the south and the Derbent Desert in the north, and maintained its independence. Today, there are many signs on our land that remind us of Caucasian Albania. Among them is one of the oldest Christian temples in the Caucasus and in the entire Christendom, the Church of Kish near Sheki, which was once overseen by the Apostolic Church of Caucasian Albania. This is a 5th century monastic cell located in the village of Mazamchai in the Balakan region. Here are the ruins of one of the ancient cultural centers of Azerbaijan and the capital of the Caucasian Albania, mentioned as Gabalaka in the chronicles and now known as the town of Gabala. Ancient travelers described Caucasian Albanians as being of pleasing appearance, tall and grey-eyed, and engaged in agriculture, arts and trade. They had a unique writing system and coinage. For centuries, the Derbent Passage and the Caspian Gate were in the sphere of interests to foreigners. One of the carvings in Gobustan was made in the 1st century AD in Latin by a centurion of the 12th Roman Lightning region during the reign of the Emperor Domitian, Caesar August, Germanicus, Lucius, Julius Maximus.
Latin dilində həkk olunmuşdur.
The 8th century became significant in the history of Azerbaijan for two events. The 20-year national movement for the liberation of the country from the Arab Caliphate under the leadership of Babek and the conversion of the local population to Islam. When Muawiyah I conquered Azerbaijan, he asked his chief commander, "What can you tell me about Azerbaijan?" The latter replied, "From ancient times, this land is a place of habitation of Turkic people."
Ərəblərin aramsız axınları Azərbaycanı ərəbləşdirə bilmədi.
Azerbaijan adapted slowly to Arab rule, but the holy values of the Islamic religion were approached respectfully and creatively.
Yaradıcı şəkildə yanaşdı.
The country managed to preserve its cultural values, both in architecture and literature. A monotheistic worldview was expressed in a typical local fashion. Azerbaijan became one of the great centers of Islamic culture. The character Gurgut Ata, mentioned in the Kitabi Dada Gurgut epic, became the most significant representation of this culture. Kitabi Dada Gurgut is a remarkable written monument of all Turkic people and is a heroic epic of the ancient August tribe. Two original manuscripts of this epic are preserved in the libraries of Dresden and the Vatican. The German researcher Dietz compared this epic to Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. From a mythological point of view, he considers some of the characters to be relics of an even more ancient stage. Every page of the Kitabi Dada Gurgut is a living chronicle of divine love of one's homeland, parents and siblings. It is a eulogy on bravery, heroism, happiness and felicity in the whole world. Nizami Ganjavi, the great Azerbaijani poet of the 12th century, was born in the city of Ganja, a place of many historic events. He created his works here. Nizami's Khamsa, a collection of the 5 poems, the storehouse of mysteries, Khosrow and Shirin, Leli and Majnun, 7 Beauties, and the Book of Alexander, was included in the Golden Collection of World Literature and became a new poetic voice and a fresh breath in the literary heritage of the world. Nizami was an expert on mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, medicine, ethics, music, and other disciplines. In addition to this, he was chosen to be one of the 3 chief sheikhs of the most influential political forces of the time in the East, called the Brotherhood of Purity. Despite his modest background, artisans and scientists, his contemporaries recognized him as a sheikh. In Nakhchivan, Abu Bakr Ajami was the creator of architectural monuments which amaze people with their refined harmony and beauty even nowadays. In the 13th century, the territory of Azerbaijan became part of the Mongol Hulaguid state. Referred to by Tamerlan as a corner of paradise, Azerbaijan put against the Tamerlan sword not only a military power, but also philosophy of life and the teaching of love expressed in the poems Javidad-Nameh, Ash-Nameh, and Mahabet-Nameh by Naimi and his student, the great Hurufi poet Nasimi. In 1259, at the insistence of the great scientist and thinker Nasraddin Tusi, an astronomical observatory was established in the city of Maraga. It was equipped with a rich library. Nasraddin Tusi's brilliance could be seen in his awareness of America's existence long before Christopher Columbus. As it turned out, Columbus's teacher, Paolo Toscanelli, used Nasraddin Tusi's astronomical tables. Even today, Tusi is considered as one of the greatest figures in Azerbaijani science. At the end of the 14th century, the Hulaguid state ceased to exist. The Shirvanshah Aksitan I made Baku the capital of Shirvan state after a devastating earthquake in the original capital, Shamakha. In his new capital, the Shirvanshah erected the walls of the inner city. Baku became a strategic port on the Caspian. A powerful fleet was established here. In 1417 to 1462, the Shirvanshah Harilullah I carried out major constructions in Baku, and its economy and culture continued to develop. Baku was first mentioned in the Book of the Dead, written around 3000 BC in Egypt during the reign of Pharaoh Menes. In the 5th and 6th century sources, Baku is mentioned as Bhagavan and Atashi Bhagwan. The name Bhagavan contains the root Bhaga, which means God and Son in ancient Turkic. Many Indo-European languages, Sanskrit and Middle Persian, and in the Avesta. In the 16th century, Shah Ismail established the Safavid Empire. His state included Azerbaijan, a great part of the southern Caucasus, Iran, southern Turkestan, Afghanistan, and during some periods Arabic Iraq and other territories. Despite his young age, Shah Ismail Hatay made Azerbaijani the official language of the state and contributed greatly to the political, economic, social, and cultural development of the empire. From the early age of 14, the founder of the Safavid state was a great commander as well as a poet and a thinker. In that period, the world-renowned artist Sultan Muhammad found and developed the Azerbaijani school of miniature art. The empire achieved great success in the fields of carpet weaving, architecture, music and sciences. State and army structures, as well as diplomatic ties, began to develop. Incidentally, Oruç Bey Bayat, who became known in Europe as Don Juan, was a Safavid ambassador in foreign countries. The official status of the Azerbaijani language was reflected in the works of the great 16th century poet Muhammad Fizuli. Particularly, his poem Leyli and Majnun gained great fame. In the beginning of the 19th century, the present-day territory of Azerbaijan became an issue of rivalry between Russia, France, Great Britain and later Germany. Tsarist Russia, which possessed a powerful army and strong mechanisms of government, was the most active in this struggle. As a result of the First Russian-Persian War, the Treaty of Gülistan was signed. This treaty resulted in the official division of the historical territory of Azerbaijan. Despite the agreement, Russian troops continued their advancement in southern Azerbaijan, and thus on the 10th of February 1828, the Treaty of Turkmenchay was signed, and as a result, Azerbaijan was divided into two parts once and for all. According to the treaties of Turkmenchay and Adrianople, the latter signed in 1829, Armenians living in Iran and the Ottoman Empire were resettled in the territories of the abolished Azerbaijani Khanates of Nakhchivan, Iravan and Karabakh. In 1828-1830 alone, nearly 40,000 Armenians from Iran and nearly 84,000 from Turkey were resettled in the South Caucasus. They were settled on the most fertile state lands of Elizabethpol Governorate, where the Armenian population had previously been scarce. In his letters, Russian diplomat and writer Alexander Griboyedov wrote, "Armenians are establishing themselves mostly on Muslim stadings. These newcomers are oppressing the local population and are forcing it to abandon these lands. We must treat the Muslims with the same care in order to prevent any aggravation of the situation." In order to achieve their goals, Armenians managed to convince Tsarist Russia to abolish the Albanian Christian Patriarchy in Azerbaijan and to transfer its property over to the Armenian Gregorian Church. Meanwhile, the influx of Armenians into the region continued. Discontented with all this, the Armenians resorted to an even dirtier policy. Using the protection of the Tsarist Russia, they began to arm themselves against the local Turkic Muslim population. As a result of this, the mass extermination of Azerbaijanis began. Thus, the period of forceful shrinking of our native territory started. The second half of the 19th century was marked by the beginning of the industrial oil production in Baku. The city became a center of foreign capital. Here, in 1879, the Noble brothers laid the foundation for the largest oil industry company in the world. Rothschild's French capital and Wilshaw's investments from England were ploughed into Baku. In the history of Azerbaijan, the 12th century became a period of global changes in social, economic, political and cultural life. More than half of the oil produced in the world at the time and 95% of the oil produced in the Russian Empire came from Baku. During this period of time, Shamsi Azadullayev, Musa Nagiev and a number of other oil magnates actively participated in the development of the Azerbaijani oil industry. Favorable conditions for the appearance of an intelligentsia educated in leading world universities were created when Baku became an oil capital and the nation entrepreneurial class was formed. The millionaire Haji Zeynalabdin Tagiev attracts special attention because of his activities. He allocated part of his earnings to the flourishing of Azerbaijan and the development of education and culture. He built theaters, opened schools, and even established a secular school for girls. Tagiev became a sponsor for a number of young Azerbaijanis who were sent to study at European universities. On the 12th of January 1908, the opera Leyli and Majnun premiered at the Tagiev Theatre. Composed by the 22-year-old composer Uzair Hejebeyli, it laid the foundation of opera, not only in Azerbaijan, but in the Muslim East. Uzair Hejebeyli was the founder of the musical comedy genre in Azerbaijan. His musical comedies, If Not That One, Then This, and The Cloth Peddler, were translated into many languages. The independence movement in northern Azerbaijan resulted in unprecedented tragedy. In March of the year 1918, the Dashnak Bolshevik Party, led by Stepan Xiaomian, seized power and carried out genocide on the Azerbaijani population. From the 28th to the 31st of March, armed Armenian troops with the support of the Bolshevik army bloodily slaughtered the peaceful Azerbaijani population in Baku, Shamakha, Kuba, and other cities. In this difficult situation, Turkey extended its helping hand to Azerbaijan and saved its people from the genocide carried out by the Armenians. At the time, the Turkish army, led by Nuru Pasha, arrived in Baku and began to put out the fires set by saboteurs at the oil fields. Nuru Pasha addressed the following words to his soldiers: "Put it out, on this land, put it out, shedding your blood, put it out, so that we can reach our goals." On the 28th of May 1980, in the territory of the South Caucasus, the Democratic Republic of Azerbaijan, the first in the Muslim East, was proclaimed with its capital in Ganja. Alimardan Topshibashov was appointed as the chairman of its parliament. Fatali Khan Khoyski became its prime minister, and Mamad Amin Razulzadeh, chairman of the Musavat Party Central Committee, was elected its president. The establishment of the Democratic Republic of Azerbaijan was the logical termination of the events which took place during this complex political period, as well as of the process of Azerbaijani national awakening. Having existed for 23 months, the Democratic Republic of Azerbaijan fell as a result of the attack of the 11th Bolshevik Red Army. Thus, Azerbaijani oil fell into the hands of the Soviet Russia, and as of December 1922, Azerbaijan officially became part of the Soviet Union.
Sovet İttifaqının tərkibinə daxil edildi.
Communist ideology assumed power in Azerbaijan.
Azərbaycanda komünist ideologiyası hakimiyyətə gəlir.
Stalin's regime began. During this period, many Azerbaijani intellectuals and respectable people were subject of repressions. Policies of genocide and deportations were implemented. In spite of this, during World War II, the people of Azerbaijan demonstrated courage both on the battlefield and the home front in the name of victory. Baku oil played a significant role in the Soviet Union's victory over fascist Germany. The high-octane fuel discovered by the Azerbaijani scientist Yusuf Mammadaliyev was one of the main factors that ensured the Soviets' technological success.
Biri oldu. Bunu hətta Winston Churchill də etiraf etmişdi. Bu isə
After the defeat of fascism, the damage left by the war in the USSR, including Azerbaijan, was rapidly repaired. New oil and gas fields were discovered and exploited. In 1948, the first offshore town in the world, Oil Rocks, was founded in the Caspian Sea. New towns, plants and factories were established, and a period of rapid economic development started. In 1969, Heydar Aliyev was elected the first secretary of the Central Committee of Azerbaijani Communist Party. Thus, many important changes occurred in the lives of the Azerbaijani people. Heydar Aliyev's rise to power put an end to the period of injustice, tyranny, and suppression of free thought. Azerbaijan, which had experienced every form of oppression, could finally rely on itself. The Soviet government understood that Heydar Aliyev was Azerbaijan's power and that it was time for this power to be taken seriously. Heydar Aliyev began to implement extensive reforms in order to turn Azerbaijan into one of the leading republics of the Soviet Union. However, our country was due to face years of ordeals, the period of the Karabakh conflict. At the end of the 1980s, Armenians exploited the situation that had emerged in the Soviet Union and, with assistance from their protectors, laid territorial claims on Azerbaijani region of Nagorno-Karabakh. The goal was to implement the idea of the so-called Greater Armenia.
Dağlıq Qarabağ bölgəsinə dair yenidən ərazi iddiaları irəli sürdülər.
In order to show the baseless nature of these claims, Azerbaijani people gathered on the Freedom Square and started protest actions.
Etiraz aksiyalarına başladı.
To oppose these actions, the Soviet government sent a large punitive contingent of the Soviet army to Azerbaijan. And on the night of the 20th of January 1990, it carried out a bloody action against the civilian population. Beginning from 1988, 20% of Azerbaijan's territory has been occupied by Armenian armed forces. On our ancient native lands, homes were destroyed and people were killed.
Evlər dağıdıldı, insanlar qətlə yetirildi.
One million Azerbaijanis subjected to ethnic cleansing were forcibly driven from Western Azerbaijan, now called Armenia, and Nagorno-Karabakh region of Azerbaijan and the districts around it. On the 26th of February 1992, Armenian thugs supported by soldiers and officers of the 366th Soviet Motorized Infantry Regiment slaughtered the civilian population of the town of Khojaly. Hundreds of people, irrespective of age and gender, were wiped out, and the Armenian savages did not even spare women, children, or the elderly. Unfortunately, the international community turned a blind eye to this act of naked aggression by Armenia and did not take any effective measures to restrain the aggressors. At that time, Azerbaijan was undergoing a period of political crisis and was facing danger of losing its independence. In this situation, Heydar Aliyev, a statesman of great political experience, returned to power at the insistence of the people. On the 3rd of October 1993, as a result of a national vote, Heydar Aliyev was elected the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan. The return of Heydar Aliyev became a turning point in the social-economic, public and political, scientific and cultural life of the country, and in the development of international relations. The process of building the independent state was initiated. In May 1994, Heydar Aliyev managed to agree a ceasefire with Armenia, and in September of the same year, he signed contracts with a number of foreign oil companies. The country attracted many investors, which ensured the restoration of its economy. The Republic of Azerbaijan based its foreign policy on the principles of equality and mutual benefits, and therefore became a country open to the world. Seen as a potential reformist and as a follower of his father's policy, Ilham Aliyev was elected the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan in 2003. Ilham Aliyev's policy and the steps taken by him are aimed at further strengthening the independent Azerbaijan. The creation of strong economic potential, further political reforms, and the strengthening of the armed forces guarantee the security and prosperity of the Azerbaijani people. Today, under Ilham Aliyev's presidency, the process of forming a democratic and secular state based on the rule of law continues. Its international ties and relations with other states become stronger. Political and economic reforms lead to successful results. Azerbaijan's First Lady, President of the Heydar Aliyev Foundation, Member of Parliament, UNESCO and ISESCO Goodwill Ambassador Mehriban Aliyeva, also implements large projects in the fields of education, healthcare, culture and philanthropy. As a result of the efforts of Mehriban Aliyeva, the great importance of Azerbaijani mugam to national as well as world culture was recognized in 2003 by UNESCO, when it was declared a masterpiece of intangible heritage of humanity. During the 2008 presidential elections, Azerbaijanis voted for their leader Ilham Aliyev once again. Modern Azerbaijan is a multi-ethnic and tolerant state. Every citizen has the right to speak his or her mother tongue and to develop their own culture and traditions. The snow-capped mountains of the Greater Caucasus and the radiant Caspian Sea, ancient fortresses and modern hotels, the colorful streets and the Baku Boulevard will enrapture you.
Anam doğma, vətənim sən Azərbaycanım. Yurdum yuvam məskənim sən Azərbaycanım. Anam doğma, vətənim sən Azərbaycanım. El bilir ki, tükənməyən sərvətin vardır. Sinən üstü ağ pambıqlı gen tarlalardır. Buruqların göy xəzərdə qatar-qatardır.
You will be fascinated by the friendliness, sincerity and hospitality of the people of Azerbaijan.
Və qonaqpərvərliyi ilə valeh edəcək.
Hopefully, the ancient land of fire, where we have just traveled, will encourage you to visit this sacred land for real. I was always proud, and today I am still proud that I am Azerbaijani. Haydar Aliyev.